Okay, I am here. So question for everyone, is the music too loud versus my voice? Um, yes, no, let me know. Also, got to put the hat on. This is a gift from one of our backers, and I feel amazingly special to be wearing this. So, it is a German Oktoberfest hat, which, yeah, I did not know these were such a thing. But apparently this is a silly hat that people in Germany wear during Oktoberfest. So, being as it's almost we are smack in the middle of that peak Oktoberfest season, I'm going to be wearing it today. This does not mean we have added the Teutons to the game. There's no fourth Teutonic realm yet. Alright, so, mic levels, check again. Everyone happy? Someone say, yes, you can hear me. No, your music is not too loud. Yes, maybe. Okay. So, what we are going to be doing today is kind of a, it's cool, but not tremendously, maybe not as spectacular as just animation. What I'm working on is the intersection of, projectiles and animation and client-side prediction. The idea being that you get, like, as you're, you draw an arrow from your quiver. It is in your hand. It is the right arrow for whatever you are doing, in terms of skills and stuff like that. And, and that's all largely done. But then we kind of have this fake projectile on the client that we want to launch out from your hand. And that, just goes off into the air. But eventually, some fraction of a second later, the server says, hey, there's a projectile, and we want to then merge those two together. Like, so what you see in the game right now, the stuff that's not yet, checked in and committed, is, so what you see on Hatchery right now is just, we're not doing anything special. It's just, your client says, hey, I'm performing this skill, and eventually the server puts an arrow or a fireball or whatever in front of you. You see it the same way everyone else in the game sees it. And I'm trying to do is tighten all of that up with, and tighten that all up just so that, it's really visceral. You see it in your hand, it leaves your hand, it's seamless as it moves out into the world. And this is also because we've unified all of the stuff with, entities and skills and siege weapons. Then this will also be what puts actual ballista bolts into the ballista. This will be what puts the rocks in the catapult, and, so there's not any kind of gap or jerk or lag as these things move out into the world. This is tending towards, well, kind of wrapping up a little bit on, like, major bits of code that I'm likely to be heavily involved in myself, as opposed to, sort of managing our increasingly large team. There's one more kind of, like, thing I need to be very hands-on with, which is getting buildings to a level of awesomeness that, are what we want for the game. And then, maybe being a little bit more of a lead and a little bit less of a programmer in the trenches. Because I'm increasingly confident in the team that we've put together with, everyone out in Seattle especially. So Sacrix, I've not actually gone to Seattle since the end of July, so I'm going to plan a trip for very early in October. I think we generally, it's one of those things where if I can make 5 programmers 10% more productive by being, you know, by just having a direct communication line there, then that pays for that's cheaper than hiring another programmer. It's cheaper than a plane ticket. I'm not flying first class, that's for sure. So Visual Studio is right now being Visual Studio and not launching. So let me figure out which of these processes is not what I want. Alright, let's try that again. Let's see. Alright, let's try and open the server project again. So, answer Strike JK. Well, just I'll speak to Sacrix. Well, Scott's had some family changes, and he's going to be working off site because of that. So he's going to be straight animator, and we want a lead here in the office. It's kind of hard to be a remote lead. And for Strike, so there's the animation engine and tech versus the actual animation. So think of it as the thing that plays the movie versus the thing that makes the movie. I made the movie projector, someone else records the motions. So I get my server built and running, and we will be ready to dive back in. Yeah, and Sacrix, that is true. With the visual gameplay elements, you want more the better, and we are slowly moving into a place where we can't, where the game is not. We're moving into a place where we're ramping up just production of assets, where there's less uncertainty about what we are making. We know exactly what art assets need to be made, and we know how they need to be made, and it's just a matter of, here's the queue, run through the queue. And so, yeah, there's going to be more art involved, and it's going to be a mix of outside contractors and also growing the art scene a little bit. But that's something that we had planned on always from the start. So. We wish we had gotten to this stage a year ago, but it is the stage we are getting to now. The system behind animation is mostly wrapped up, except for bugs. It's things like sort of attached to animations. How does animation integrate with this piece of gameplay? How does animation integrate with, we want to put projectiles in your hands as part of playing the animation. Those kinds of things where it's sort of the leaf type stuff. And I think the overall system has worked well. You know, certainly all the animators always want better tools, but you know, that is everybody. Um, Better version of Visual Studio. Okay, so now I've got my server started up. I'll switch back over to the client. And, you know, this is the server starting up. Guess what? It's a command line program. Just sort of sits there and spews logs at you, and yeah, most interaction with it involves slash commands from a client. I don't know. So Strike, I mean, there's a lot more people who understand coding than understood chemistry. I mean, in the medieval times, chemistry was... no one knew what was going on. It's like we banged these rocks together and something happened, and we at least have like a theoretical foundation. You know, there's a framework. It's not. Alright, so as soon as the server gets fully started up, actually I'm going to run yet another copy of Visual Studio and build out some animation data. Again, hat is a gift from Apollon, who is one of our backers. This is a German Oktoberfest hat. So, let's see. CU build server, and here we go. You can see the giant server online. That's the server has finished bootstrapping itself from the database. But before we actually start up, I'm going to I guess we can go without it. Alright, so I'm going to start up a client connected to my local server. Sorry, none of you are going to be able to run around and kill me today, and because I'll be playing on my own very private server. And the reason for that is normally when I'm doing things that just you know, are entirely client-side, I'll just run directly connected to Hatchery, and you know, you can see IT backers run up and kill me. But for this particular thing, there are some server-side changes, so you know, I have to update the server and the client in sync with each other. It's like, you know, the server sends a message and the client is expecting the message to be formatted a certain way, so you change the message format, and they don't necessarily know how to talk to each other. So, true story, Strike. Beard's actually white. I'm an old man. I'm a graybeard. I sit atop the throat of the world, contemplating dragons. And yeah, I'm hiding my age here. All I have to do to have a white beard is stop dyeing it. Okay, so for some reason, yeah, I had a breakpoint set. Let's unset the breakpoint so the client will actually finish connecting. The client's waiting for terrain to load. all time is just a mess now. It'll take a couple seconds for time to catch up to reality, because I had the server stopped on breakpoint for so long, so now time is catching up. I would certainly, on my long-term to-do in everyone's copious free time, it would be nice to make a better way of handling like seriously lagged out time. But so this is the state of things. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to quit out and rebuild some animations real quick. Because I think the client is loading up the wrong ones. After, of course, I kill whichever version of Visual Studio is not loading right. It's this one. Yep, I guess right. So part of the joy of Twitch streaming is, for some reason, my taskbar becomes unresponsive. So sometimes I get to restart things. Okay. So it got farther. Better it'll think. Turn my music down. And I'm going to make change to my streaming setup. Yeah, zoom that in a little better. That'll be better. So fire up the build server, and I'm going to rebuild all my animation data. Okay, turned it down more. Okay, so now we are running the build server to rebuild all my animation data with the changes that I've made, and we will see how the client hopefully Alright, let's try another slider. Now it should be really quiet. Just have to turn it up for myself. Okay, so this says if you zoom way in, you can see it's rebuilding the giant skeleton file. That'll be done in just a second, and then I'll start the client back up. That will have the rebuilt version of that file, and hopefully the right animation should play that time. This is the single biggest chunk of our build process to build the massive compressed pack of animations. So it'd be nice to find ways to speed that up, although most of the time is spent in the FBX reader itself. So there's only so much you can do. Okay, so that's rebuilt. And yeah, Strike, I can. In theory, OBS has a nice little slider to just adjust the desktop audio volume. For some reason, that's not working. All right, so let's try using this ability now. Okay, so what you can see right here. You can see a guy grab an arrow. It's a fire arrow. It's at the wrong position. So what's maybe a little fast to see on the stream is that 2 arrows leave now. And one of them is a thing that was created just on the client, and the other one is the actual arrow that you're coming down from the server. Actually, I've tagged the fire arrow on the. I've tagged the one that's client only with a fire effect just to make it easier to see. But other than that, that is what you should be seeing from the server. But so go into aiming mode, and you can see here I'm going to shoot right in front of me. You'll see 2 arrows hit the ground, and one's the flaming one, and one's the server one. And they come out with slightly different physics. So, I don't know, can people see that? Is that too zoomed in to see? So what I want to do is get it down to just 1 arrow, and when the server side arrow comes down, what we'll do is add a second is just merge the 2 projectiles together and have the server arrow go. Yeah, there was a good view of both of them. Whoa, that's not my music. Ah, we had 2 music players going. Now we don't. So the slightly different physics, good call that you're noticing that. The server right now does not exactly play animations. So the server is just sort of spawning it about 1.5 meters in front of you, directly in front of you, whereas the one coming out of your hand on the client is literally coming directly out of your hand. And so that's why, they start at slightly different positions, and so they ending up in different places. But other than that, and so Sacrix, what I'm working on right now is to improve problems with lag and time delay. So the idea is that a projectile comes directly out of, the client itself generates a projectile, and then eventually, when you hear about one from the server, to just sort of, instead of, well, now there's two projectiles, to take the one you've already generated on the client and blend its position to the position of the one you hear from the server. So, so yeah. So the fire arrow is coming right out of your hand, exactly where it should be. Please ignore, like, there's a marker that Scott needs to rotate 90 degrees, but so yeah, the idea is that, yeah, it should be perfect. You should not be able to tell any lag or anything like that. So let's talk about how we're going to do that. The server, the client knows that it's produced a certain projectile, but right now all the client knows about is that it's, hey, the server says there's a projectile here. What the client needs to know is some way to say, hey, I got a projectile from the server, and I know exactly which, exactly which thing I've already produced on the client, that is. And that's a slightly complicated thing because, the projectile is its own entity, and, we know this player is playing a skill, so the projectile needs to gain a reference to, or the server needs to tell the client not just, there's a projectile at this position moving like this, but there's a projectile at this position moving like this that came from this guy's use of this skill, and once we know that, we'll be able to line it up perfectly. And that sounds like more data, but it's not as bad as it seems, because we can use our knowledge of that data to then actually send less data about the projectile. If we just know that this projectile came out of this guy using this skill, then, for instance, we know that the projectile's position is going to be very, very near that guy, and that lets us cut down on the data that we send. And that's sort of a phase 2 optimization. Right now the goal is just to correlate the two of them. So, let's go over to the server, and in our skill system, let's see, we have a move over here and get a couple more files open. Doesn't even matter what these are, just so I open some files to get my window back in the right place. Okay. Okay, so here we have our EC create physics entity, and how this works is that we have a like, when things happen on the server, it's not just call this function. What we do is we create an event that has a whole bunch of components that, say create physics entity, and I am using a skill, and then that event gets announced, and stuff has a chance to interject and change it and say, oh, every time someone picks their nose, Rob gets set on fire, and add things to that event, and then something else says, oh, well, every time Rob gets set on fire, then the bell rings, and, just having all kinds of chances to interrupt and modify stuff. So EC create physics entity is event component create physics entity, and that's the thing that actually, as part of using a skill, emits a projectile. Then we have and that ends up calling into physics entity add physics entity. So what we want to do is get some information about the physics entity, get more information into the physics entity. So we already have the skill phase component that came out of the event, and what we do is we don't actually use this for anything yet. Source skill, get the component. And that will get me the actual skill that is being used. But actually we want to go invocation ID, which gives me, hey, I am using a skill, and that's every time you use a skill, it gets this invocation ID, and it's just a steadily increasing series of numbers. The first time you use a skill, it gets invocation ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Source skill invocation ID, and if any of that is missing, it's 1. Or rather, that's an unsigned integer. So I think actually a 0 is a valid invocation ID. So actually I'm going to walk it back and just say get the skill itself. Then so I'm going to go to add physics entity and add another parameter to it. And just because this parameter list is getting very long, I'm going to break it up into more lines so that the code is easier to read. And just add a skill. Now, what I'm going to do is, now that I have that, what I'm going to do is pass that into the owner history component, which keeps a little record of stuff. But before I can do that, what I'm going to have to do is go to owner history component out here. And you can see it's just a really simple little type. There's a long talk about immutables and stuff like that, but this is code gen stuff. I can delete this comment since I did that, but I'm going to make a little tuple type here. Owner history entity and this sets up some code gen on it that I just say that's not entity writable at all. And we'll come back and make this serializable later. Right now it doesn't get sent anywhere. but we don't need. So just have a little entries in our owner history that aren't just the entity, but what produced the entity and we might as well save off the skill phase as well. Actually, let me. I'm gonna flip over to skill queue, which is this, which is the thing that runs all the skills on a player or a trebuchet or anything that's using skills, and just going to check. Just going to do a quick search for next invocation ID to make sure that we're... Yeah, so that starts off at... Yeah, so it starts off at 0. So 0 is definitely not a safe thing to use for an invalid ID. Okay, very sorry. It's a very important question here. Beer. Austrian beer, best beer. So I would have agreed with Vlam, Vlam 12 a while ago. I'm a believer in American craft beer. I've been sold. Like, you know, I used to mostly stock Belgians, and there are so many good American beers that, yeah, I'm, my favorite Belgian is made by Hardywood here in Virginia. That's sorry, it's really good. Okay, so back over here. We don't really need all. We don't. I suspect we don't actually even need the entity. So we're just going to have 2 nullable fields for the ID and the actual invocation, because carrying around the actual entity is probably not good for us. Because, I mean, it would be carrying around an actual snapshot of the entity at the time that we created it, and that's almost certainly more than we want or need. Actually, I think if you're going to have an owner history, an entity ID is required, and entity ID has an implicit, does have a designated invalid value, whereas skill invocation may or may not be present. So, but if it is, we will store it. You'll see I put that little question mark there, which makes it nullable, which means we can indicate a value or the absence of a value. Whereas entity ID has an actual null type. Anyway, so now I've changed owner history component to have these little history entities, and I'm going to go ahead and start a server rebuild. and I'm going to get a ton of compile errors now. What just happened? Okay, now the build is working right. And back over to chat. Yeah, the stuff does generate more garbage at runtime, and that is a concern. On the other hand, that's balanced by the fact that immutable data is inherently all 100% thread safe. So, you either have the old version of an entity or you have the new version of an entity, and they don't, and it's going out from under you. Nothing else is going to change it. So the balance is lock-free concurrency on the server, and I think overall we spend far less time garbage collecting than we would if all of our entities had to have a bunch of locks all over the place to make sure that two changes didn't step on each other. So I think we are winning. Seems to be working out. Alright, so here I have a nice long list of errors of stuff that didn't compile because it was expecting owner snapshots over here to just directly contain an entity. So I'm going to push through and change all of those where I can. Oh wait, there's also a physics entity. Actually, I'm going to remove this for 1 second to add physics entity and do another build to just get the errors from the change to owner history snapshots. And that's a much smaller list of errors that I have to fix. Let's see if I can get away with actually, I'm going to make one more small change. Looking at this, I'm not going to do immutable generation on this owner history entry at all. I'm just going to make it a simple struct so it doesn't go on the heap. These nice properties. Which I will initialize in here. And give this a default value of null. Okay, so now that's a simple struct. That'll be a lot lighter weight, and that'll make the other changes that I'm about to do simpler. Less copying of crap around. everyone's talking about beer, and I have to think about code. It's so hard. I want to go drink beer now. I challenge you to drink a cubic liter of beer. Yeah, let's see it. All right, so okay, so this is all solvable problems. We have to get rid of. Um, just put a simple. Oh, sorry. Pull this down so you can actually see what I'm typing. So this was a. This just had one thing that exposed the entity, and I'm adding these two functions here to it to just provide all the data there. It's just short accessors. So here's the interface to that. Let's just make that current. And then what happened here? Oh, needs more namespace. I think most of us would love to organize our namespaces better. It is not, and that's C++. Yeah, that does not get us to an epic siege sooner, though, but someday maybe we will. Let's see. Yeah, this will have to become nullable because you don't necessarily know if you have a value or not. Actually, no, let's not make it nullable. Let's just give you a default that says you have no owner. You are alone and unloved in the world. So current... if you are... I'll just give you a null, a fake null history entry. current entity will do something similar, except we won't make a new struct. We will just return that. Make these bad boys public. And actually, this will be copy them onto the mutable updater class. Oh my god. See you film us. I will love you forever, but it will not help get the game done. He's offering us, yeah, he's offering to send us beer from Europe. Yeah, all because of the hat. Like, Apollon sent us the hat, and then, you know, now they're just like, oh, you need Oktoberfest beer. Okay, so, yeah, I just have one question for all of you. Favorite Oktoberfest beer in particular? What's, not Belgian triples, not your favorite stout. You just specifically your go-to Oktoberfest style. Let me know. Let's see. So Vlam, Spaten won, or actually 2 years ago. 2 years ago last week, Spaten was what I served at my wedding, the Spaten Oktoberfest. So I'm certainly a fan of that. People drank the hell out of that. Like I had like all these different beers, and they just destroyed the Spaten Oktoberfest. Polliner's getting a lot of love. Wait. Okay, GTAOE. I'm sorry. A ground target area of effect. There's some variation. If we're talking about just so targeted arrows aren't really ground targets. They're just aimed. And if you aim at the ground, they go there. But the thing is, they have arc to them. So a projectile that doesn't have arc, we are likely to make some small changes to how you aim them. And yeah, for whatever it's worth, Latuine, CU is all metric. There are no customary units in this game engine or the game logic. So anyway, okay. So I made this change, and I'm gonna pipe that through. Get my build going. Hang on, I'm gonna copy down everyone's Oktoberfest beer recommendations. Save that forever for posterity, and then go drink all of them. Well, yeah, maybe we'll have a weekend stream and just wear the Oktoberfest hat and drink the Oktoberfest beers. Okay, so yeah, got to. Gotta pipe this through. So here's a couple places that we're calling those two little functions. And likewise, this one works fine. That works fine. And now we're gonna do some more building and just keep on plumbing this stuff through. Compiler and then change every place. You know, this is one of the reasons I like statically typed languages a lot. Is you can just make one change and just the compiler will tell you everything that depends on that change. Let's see, so here's one where we're gonna have to make some fancier changes in here. This code can go away. Let's see. Okay, this code's a little tricky, and I'm going to have to... Let's see. Okay, so there we get the... so the change I made there is to if we have a current owner ID, then we will get then we will fetch go look up the entity by that ID. Otherwise, we will return we'll use the current entity and make a similar change down here. actually, there's a slight gotcha here, which is I'm going to say, I'm going to just write something real quick. Now, if this ID is actually, we can do even better. I'm going to go back to where we where I wrote this code originally. Current owner ID. And say this. So, so this will get our current entity ID. Sorry. And this will return an identity. There. So that's a very nice little helper function for us that will take care of, if this entity is currently an updater and it's in flight and it's being modified, then we will just return it instead of going out to the world state. So that does what I was doing here, but a lot better. And so all we then have to do is current owner, and that's nice. That's nice clean code there, and way less chance of doing something dumb. And here we do the same thing to this down here, and those are both happy. likewise, I'll do the same thing in this function here because this should get an event handler context. Okay, so that should take care of most of my stuff. Let the build do its building. I'll get a few more errors, but way less than I had. Everything's in a better state. And so we're down to just this. And this one's the easy one. Oh. So actually, we're in a good place. So we will mutable array.create. We're down to just the thing that I originally wanted to do, which store the owner ID. I actually need the owner for anything besides... Yeah, we don't even need an owner ID. So, sorry. So I'm just updating the add physics entity interface to get me the same parameters that I now need to pass into the owner history. I'm going to get rid of that for now. Not even add that, but if we do have an owner ID, okay, and that will add an X, and then because we have just sort of nice happy defaults on all of our helpers, then it's okay to leave it off if we don't have one. So the whole thing will be way lighter weight. And the last one, and this is what we finally want to do. We want to be able to send to the proxy. And we can just make this as simple as current owner snapshot, and this in the entity ID and in and if we do have a skill invocation value, and there we are. So now the proxy is being told who used the skill and where and what skill they used on it. And I believe the server should compile now. Server will not run yet because the proxy is going to that it doesn't have. So let me catch up on chat while I... Wow. Okay. Sometimes the joy of things is that you don't actually get all of your errors as soon as you would like. Okay, so I'll take a second to catch up on chat. Okay, so going way back to the question of arrows. So Sacrix, how will I aim Andrew? Will there be aimed headshots? The thinking is that headshots, whether something is targeted at the head or legs or whatever, is a matter of the actual skill component of like, hey, I want to affect this, and as long as your aim hits the guy in general, then that's where the damage will take place. And we'll do a little bit of cheating on that, I guess. Well, cheating's a wrong word, but maybe magnetism. So, yeah, like we know that we're not making an FPS here. There is a cool FPS that could be made, but that's not this game, and that's not what the Dark Age players signed up for. So, don't worry that we are not really going for a Twitch game here, but we do want some of the emergent stuff of physics, like going down, scrolling down to it's Odilvic's question: being able to angle arrow shots to bend it around allies and hit a target. Yes, yeah, that's or will fire in a straight line if it's in the bow's attack arc. Yes, that is the idea. And the idea is that what the arrow hits is what it hits, but where the damage gets applied, we're not expecting people to target individual body parts. So that's kind of the compromise that we found, because we really do like the emergent gameplay from physics, and you'll remember some of the like melees we had with chucking fireballs a couple of years ago. That those were fun. The amount that deflecting physics projectiles with wind spells, that was fun. We want to preserve that. We want to get back to it quickly. So yeah, you won't necessarily be able to damage your same realm, but the physics are actually meaningful. And no, you can arc over things. So, let's see. So, going over gravity to arc your shots, some projectiles will have stronger tracking depending on the skill, and that's something that's just sort of a variable parameter. Yeah, Lotween and Strike, you've got it exactly. teammates block projectiles but do not take damage is kind of the default state of things. And no, you can't. Archers can't group with melee in terms of shooting their teammates in the back, creating some separation. It's the same idea of even just like a small group of, you have an 8-man, you put your tank in the front line, you put your healer in the back, and you want archers to have some separation too, not just because they're squishy, but because they need room to fire. So, catching rolling cheese. Wait, there's a TV show where you show a Netherland girl rolling cheese for miles. I need to see this. Like, an hour of a person rolling cheese is like the best TV show ever. How can you survive in the USA as a teen when the drinking age is 21? Hypocrisy. How much longer is my wife going to put up with the beard? She's used to it. I think she's used to it. The round thing sticking out of my beard. It's me head. All right. Yeah, caught up to present. All right. Yeah. So, let's see. Fix that bit of code. Let's see. In here, this is the thing we finally needed. Invocation ID, so that gets fed in where we wanted it. Oh god, all of these tests. Lots and lots of unit tests for the item code. I'm just updating them all to say not only do you have no owner, you have no skill. Which goes without saying, there shouldn't ever be an owner without a skill. Or a skill without an owner, I mean. Oh no, I missed this bit. Okay, so now I'm going to break the stuff I just fixed. Such is life. Nobody owns the door. That's probably a bug. The door should be owned by a building. Let's see. So this is mostly just plumbing through all the places where we added something. Okay, straight. Okay, catching up with chat again. How much longer is your wife picking the beard? Eh. Someone's calling me. Okay. Without my wife pestering me about getting rid of the beard, how will he be sufficiently motivated to get to beta? I think the main thing is I've forced myself to give up most of my beer until I get to beta, so that's probably the most brutal thing. Yeah. Light beer. Oh god. I drink only light beer. Oh god. Only Coors Light for beta. Oh god. That's that's how we never get to beta because I kill myself. Oh. Uh so question on starting your masters. I would say do what you love and find a way to use that for games. I mean, yeah, that's really my answer. So if you love HPC and optimization, then focus on that. All right. Actually, you should change this to an I entity here. Okay, and then everything really will compile. Please. Just saw me make one very small change, and that caused a bunch of compile errors where stuff needed to be updated for that change. And so I fixed those, which spread out to more, and eventually it came all the way back to, and now the server has plumbed who fired the skill all the way through to sending to the proxy. But we're not done. But wait, there's more. So, physics entity network state, where we receive this. Where we receive the bounty. Let's see. Let's see. Let's just go add the fields we need. So here we are over in C++ land, the land of knives and razors, and and we have a skill, whether we have a skill invocation and the skill invocation ID itself. And then actually, let's give this a nice invalid value when it's not there. Alright, so the proxy's got it from the server. Now the proxy needs to be able to send it to the client. And the client needs to receive it from the proxy. So update all of this serialization stuff. Um, okay, so real simple. A lot of this code is very early stuff. And a lot of this is much more code gen now, but we're getting into some of the very first stuff that ever got written. Where it's all very manual. Else, just copy these over from the old version. Okay, so that'll get that, and okay, so there's the server to client version. Same version of client receives a delta from the proxy. Sorry, the top was server to proxy version. This is client receives a delta from the proxy. This is client receives a new entity from the proxy. Read that entity ID. Actually, just copy this code from up here. Else. Just null it all out. So taken care of there, taken care of there, and everywhere else that we touch owner ID, we will say let's see. And this is just Just comparing all of those. Okay, so skill invocation ID. There's that. Need a better way of compressing these, but 32 bits is good enough for now. Last of all, and we're done. We plumbed it all the way through to the client. Probably. Who can find what I messed up? Because I guarantee you there's a typo in what I just spit out. Yeah, probably not. Oh my god, the Reverend. So, the Reverend Habidecus, actually going up slightly forward. Yeah, the to core activities. The hat is a gift from Apollon, one of our backers, who wanted me to wear it on stream. So I have. I also wore this to the Maryland Renaissance Festival over the weekend, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, that's so awesome! That's Gandalf!" And I was like, "It's just an Oktoberfest hat, you provincial Maryland people. You know Lord of the Rings, but you don't know Bavaria." Which is kind of weird that people know Middle Earth more than they know Bavaria. The world is strange. Okay, so anyway, moving down, Habidecus asked about the Reverend. That was by far the favorite beer of Jason Abbott, the lead server engineer who shared an office with me on Warhammer Online. And he would crack, and we had a little mini fridge in our office, and he would crack that open on special occasions. Yeah, so yeah. Let's see. Lowercase has owner ID. Yep, has owner ID is it's a local variable. It's meant to be. Nah, Jason. Oh wait, seriously? You're Jason Abbott? Oh my God. Hi. Welcome to the stream. Thanks for hanging out. I miss you, Jason. That's amazing. I did not know who you were on Twitch. What's up? How you doing? I feel like I need to send an. If I had any interns, I would send one out to get me a bottle of Reverend in your honor now. All right, let's build this bad boy. Oh, yep, there we are. Should be right, Uant. Again, yay static typing, catching all my mistakes for me. And how close are we? I think that was the last one. I'm going to start up a new server. Go, 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 go. Mostly we're waiting for it to build now. And here we are. Watch the server start up. Alright, seriously. So Jason, do you remember... let's see. I'm going to go on a trip through time. I'm going to venture onto Facebook over here and go to my photos. Going back to 2009, when I was still nominally single. It's really easy. I just keep scrolling until I don't see my wife anymore. Really? This isn't on here? Oh wait. Never mind. Those were photos of me. We're just waiting for the server to start up. Alright, server's up. Start a client with all of these changes. Or restart a client. Yes, the Dogfish Brewery shot. Just the receipt. You know, Bandcamp is special. Bandcamp. Bandcamp is like actually my main website for wasting time. I listen to lots of music. I found this band on Bandcamp. Okay, so hey, look, the client's actually back. The client's up now. I'm in the game. So just double check first of all that no assertions or errors come out, and that means we have a whole lot of sync checking built into our network stream. So if I'd like forgotten anything or it was misaligned, I would actually be getting a nice big fat spew of errors. So, and I'm not. So wait a second. I should not have removed this error. new client, less crashing. This will be a much smaller rebuild. Note to self to fix that before I check this back in. Call my Twitch police. Bust me. Bring it, dude. I am streaming the thing that says not to stream. Okay. So, so what I want to check is, am I actually getting all the data that I want over here on in the client? So when we receive a dynamic entity network state, I'm going to put a breakpoint, and that's the server telling us about a physics entity. Does it match up with the skill that I have used? Boom. So I just fired an arrow and got a dynamic entity network state. So over here, expanding it out, velocity, target ID has no, and go into the physics entity, and it has an owner ID, has a skill invocation, and the skill invocation ID is 1. So and it happens again, and the skill invocation is 2. So yeah, I am getting complete data about what skills about my skill usage on the client every time I fire a projectile. The projectiles know which entity they came from. So now that I've got this information, it's phase 2. Well, phase 1 is just commit. So alright. So I've got that code. I'm gonna commit it to my branch in just my local Git repo, because this is a really good checkpoint. And then I am going to take a small break. And get some more water, and I will be right back. Mic on! So the dragon is untouchable, but Colin Colin has done a lot of really good work with an NPC server. There's the beginnings of guards that will patrol an area or things like that. Very beginning, and yeah, and so if we, that's definitely the place to write some dragon code. That'll happen soon. Maybe. It'll definitely be a weekend project. It's something I'd like to do, though. Of just make the dragon interact with the world in a more interesting way. And, maybe we'll get Sandra to make some actual dragon animations. I don't know. She doesn't like reptiles very much, though, so that's not likely. She wouldn't do reptiles just for fun at all. I'm joking. Sandra's got many pet lizards that she keeps in the office. Getting back to the actual stuff. All of the magic is going to have to be in here. Let's see. And that's going to be in our network update function for dynamic entity. And we are going to say, as a very quick and dirty thing, we're going to say in here, so we get our projectile network state. So, see if yeah, I'll make some quick accessors for let's see, get the data out. And so that'll let me actually get this out of here. So, let's see. So in here, let's say we say if we did not have an old state and the new state has a skill invocation ID, that's telling us that, hey, we just came into the world and we want to spawn a projectile from somebody. What we need to do in here is grab all the stuff off of that projectile. And what we'll say is, let's see. Let's see, another. World get entity. So and this is something that I'm just going to say that this is a little bit hand wavy. That we're both running both of these in the right thread, because every entity has a thread that it's bound to. There's some cheating going on right now that that means we're running both of these entities in the same thread. I just want to make sure that that is true, because what I'm about to do is steal the owner entity's projectile. Let's see. Get skill queue. And let me pull up the skill queue. Is there a fast way to get yeah, skill for invocation ID? Skill queue. So now we've gotten the actual client side skill. Got to include that. So at this point we've found the skill that actually got used, which is cool. And now all we have to do is steal its projectile. And we're just going to assume that the first that these things come in the order. This will be a thing that has to be cleaned up later. As right now, we just grab that. Just So, let's see. Skilled projectile. So what we'll do is black dark magic. I need a way to steal my entity, or steal that entity's geometry. Let's see, that's the... well, it's the same class, so we can really just steal it. Yeah, so... I'm literally stealing its model state and effect state, so it'll just be seamless continuity. Let me make sure that I can get away with this. See, yeah, the effect state does not keep track of anything, just the model state. What does model state actually use the entity for? Let me check, because we're gonna have to change this owner. Yeah, we don't actually need this guy. Yeah, model state doesn't need it. Doesn't actually need the owner. It just needs a context and a model factory. So we're going to change that. Okay, so this is going to get rather tricky. Just because we need to switch the renderable's contexts over to this entity's contexts. Actually, before I even go down that path, I'm going to just do a simple double check on this that we're doing the right thing. So I'm going to just remove the entity from the world and just confirm that, hey, we're removing the right one. And then okay, so this should get the first part, which is all it's going to do is remove the just remove the predicted entity. It's not going to blend anything across, but that should at least confirm that, hey, we're finding the right thing and getting rid of it. And here's the game. Okay, so yeah, strike. Yes, the predicted state is the one on the client. Here we go. So what should happen now is that you should just create a projectile and it should vanish at the exact instant that we get a server projectile, but they still want crossfade nicely. So that'll be phase 2. More likely what's going to happen is that it will crash, but okay, so for whatever reason this did not trace all the way through. I don't think that's actually happening. So let me fire this off. Yeah, so it is actually running. Actually, I want to delete this. Okay, so client's coming back after a very, very small change to take out a check that might have been keeping the code I wrote from actually running. And yeah, and so yeah, now you don't see a double arrow anymore. All you see is the arrow from the server, and meanwhile on you know, your arrow just like it vanishes, but the little tuft of fire that I've attached to it for debugging purposes, it vanishes at the exact instant that the server arrow appears. Let's check the side view again. So you can see the arrow in your hand vanishes at the instant the server arrow appears, but you know, that little puff of fire is just the last particles fading out after the arrow itself has vanished. So what we have to do now, they are connecting. The new arrow is coming in. It is finding the old arrow. What we now have to do is just connect the two of them together. Yeah. And yeah, the animation, obviously, there is like just a marker in the animation that needs to be changed to make that look good. The marker needs to be rotated 90 degrees. It will happen. So yeah, let's it's closer and closer. So, step one is to just steal the projectile. Steal the model itself instead of making a new model. So this is tricky because if I just steal it, then it's going to spam asserts all over the place because kind of these entities live in different threading contexts, and I need to get the renderable hoisted out of the threading contexts. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to pull them out of the scene entirely, and that may be a little bit complicated. First thing to do is get the model state and the effect state to be sort of retargetable. Actually, yeah, this is horrible. I can get away with this for now. it's probably going to work just fine because we're running in everyone's context. So let's just try moving this over. What? Bull is laughing. Bull is cackling. So I'm going to pull this code that makes our projectile down to know if we've already made a projectile. So I'll just start that up, and skillproj.clientDef. And then, okay, so we've gotten the ID there, and then if the entity's in the, and that's all safe, so come down here. Okay, that's simple. Actually, I could have left this code exactly like it was. Okay, so now what should happen, is that the model moves over, but it just sort of snaps to the new position. It doesn't have continuity of position. Okay, so, and I totally just left the game up instead of showing you the code that I was writing. Because it might be a sign that I've been on the stream for too long, but I want to finish this before I go off. Okay, so yeah, that's perfect. Okay, that's not perfect. There was no arrow at all. It looked great the first time. So sometimes it's just vanishing. And sometimes it's moving over perfectly. So what's happening when it vanishes? That's not every other one. It's about half of them. Um, let's see. Yeah, the old entity is definitely going away. We're definitely getting rid of the old entity now. Um, Yeah, so what you saw there, I don't know if you saw like the double arrow that just happened there. Um, so it's like the predicted one came out when I hit my trigger, and then the real server entity arrived and stole it. And so like it came out and then got replaced, or then it got yoinked. So there ends up being only one. But for a brief second there's two. But it doesn't stay that way. It's more of a just it appears in one position and then it blends to and then it snaps to the other position. So you're seeing like we start off with an arrow and then the arrow leaves my hand as a predicted entity, and then we get the server version and the server says, "Hey, I'm over here," and we grab that off. But here's what's interesting, because this is 100% reliable when I go into aim mode like this. So where I'm actually clicking the mouse to precisely time the release, and in that aimed mode, the client is always launching, is always getting to the point where it drops the entity into the world. Hold on, 1 second. Okay, so I will quickly summarize what I've learned from this. So when I aim, it fires directly, or like that ensures that it always leaves my hand. Whereas when I go out of aiming mode, it's just on a timer on when it leaves my hand, and And I think the problem here is that the problem here is coming in if the real projectile arrives. So when it's on a timer, it's possible that the new projectile can arrive on the server before it's actually left my hand and is in the world. And that suggests a really simple fix, which is to get this effect state. Have to detach it from the parent. So over here, I added this little line here. If the entity is in the world, meaning it's flying through the world, as a real entity that's just free, we take it out of the world. But if it wasn't in the world, what that means is that if it wasn't in the world, it means it's on someone as a parented to the player, and so we need to deparent it from the player. And this might be the solution we're looking for. So build the client, and that might be what's going on. We had to make sure that we took it off of U, and this might get it to 100% reliable. There's still the problem of positioning. Let's just keep doing this. Yeah, so that's 2 in a row. 3, 4, yeah. So I think we've gotten it beat. Looks tight. So the last little bit is we need to actually maintain continuity of position, because you can see it it just teleports to somewhere in front of me, or when I go into aim mode, it comes out and then gets ahead and teleports back. So here it is in aim mode. You'll see it come out and then teleport back when we get a server entity. So you see that little stutter. So both of those need to be 100% tight, but I'm going to commit this as a checkpoint. Steal the projectiles. Alright, so how bad is the noise of the vacuum cleaner? Like, can you actually hear my voice through this little mic, or is it completely drowned out? Okay. Yeah, sweet. It's a little teeny. The you know, the $6 Logitech headset proves its worth again. So here we have. Let's see, a couple other things we need to do in here actually. Let's see, first off, brake so we don't steal all the projectiles if you were doing some attack that had multiple projectiles. Then, let's see, we detached it from the parent. What are the other things we need to do? Right. Local physics state. I get that in there. And last of all, my God, that's loud. Okay. Let's see. So current position dot position. I'm getting tired of typing this all the time. Okay, so if it's not in the world, we will start with the position that we had. Let's see. And where is my code for to fire it? Fire a fake version. Let's see. Anything else we need? Yeah, we need to set up acceleration and velocity. Um, let's see. Did we initialize gravity factor? Almost there. Let's set our acceleration. And the last thing we need is a velocity, which I'm going to go down to the fire locally predicted projectile. We'll just assume that you are getting a speed from somewhere. Let's see. Actually, I think we are going to not initialize velocity here. Or for that matter, acceleration. We're just going to set them. So, last thing to add is so I'll just set up these two fields to say that we have not initialized the position and velocity yet, and and move this around a little bit. So we always grab the current position, but these will both be false if it's not actually set up in the world. Then we'll override the position and the orientation if we have a model. And finally, we'll remove it from the world. We want to do that last because that might move around the model. Then down here, if we don't have a last physics state, we initialize these two. And I think we're done. Okay, so, if this is, then I will roll this all up, and you'll probably see this on Hatchery tonight. We'll see how that goes. And I'll be just in time to hand you off to Storytime with Max. Okay. So the grand test, will it just seamlessly interpolate between the two? That did not look like what I wanted to see. That definitely did not look like what I wanted to see. Um, yeah, all the assertions. Who loves assertions? Let's just pretend for a brief moment that that was not, that assertion might have been a very sporadic thing. It's probably not, but okay, this is evil. It's continuing to do this. Okay, I see what's gone horribly wrong. Um, so I've just copied over the local physics state, but I haven't updated things about like whether the entity is actually in the world. So what's happening here is my local physics state says I am still traveling, but we have not actually added the entity to the world yet. So, so what I actually need to do is yeah, that'll take care of doing the actual transition in the code that you can't see because I once again forgot. Um, Instead of just saying the local physics state, I call transition local physics to turn my local physics state into what we would like it to be, and actually update all the entity data that goes along with that. Do our build. But see, Odilvik, there is no evil code of arrow protection on the client, because we always assume the client is lying. And much as you cannot cheat your wall through the big blue beef, the arrows will actually still hit you. And the server will decide that you are getting hit by arrows, even if your client pretends it isn't. Nothing you see on the client actually matters. Yes, and Max is giving me the 4-minute warning. But I think we may have the... This is looking tighter. Refill my ammo. Yeah, it's looking like the position is just interpolating cleanly. Let's do that again with, aiming mode. Put it. Oh, so close. All right. Well, I am going to turn you over to Max's Tinder ministrations. He says that this time he is going to leave way less teeth marks than usual. So I will find this last bug, but you should see this on Hatchery later tonight. If, you're an IT kind of person. All right. Thanks a lot, guys, and I will see you later. Ha ha ha.
Hey folks, welcome to another Storytime with Max. I hope you've enjoyed watching Andrew work his magic with ammunition animation. That seemed to be going pretty well. Great. Alright, can you hear me? That's good. And I'm going to get going here. So, I'm going to read part of our recently published lore. This is part 5 of the Silverhands Becoming story. And I'm reading the second half of that. Let's see. To catch us up, Nuada, our hero, our erstwhile king of the Tuatha De Danann, has been laying siege to Tir na Nog, and furiously demanding that Bress come out and challenge him. However, he had the wool pulled from his eyes by a Hamadryad healer, and saw that the city actually lay in ruins, and his arm was in fact a spider's arm, and not the golden magic arm that he thought it was, and his sword was a twisted thing of bone and whatnot. Yeah, it doesn't update the title of the stream until after you refresh. Let's see. That's it. he just had himself disillusioned, and the Hamadryad healer went off to get something or someone for a year, and Nuada has been waiting. So, the Becoming Silverhands Part 5, the second half. It was a long wait for Nuada and his troops on the outskirts of Tir na Nog. Much of his army had already melted into the countryside. Perhaps they lost interest when he forbade them to strip the city of whatever it had left, or perhaps they were too disgusted by their leader's true appearance. Didn't he already try talking to Baelor? Yes. Thank you for reminding me, Ladaween. Nuada found that the only thing in the city, really, was this tremendous stone statue, a one-eyed man, whose baleful gaze would cut anyone in half that tried to approach and threatened him. And Nuada approached without being armed, and managed to survive, and thought about killing himself for all his misdeeds, but that's not what occurred. All right, so only a few loyal Tuatha remained to wait with Nuada. Almost another year passed before a familiar figure rode into town, accompanied by a young Deverger who carried the tools of a craftsman. Reaching Nuada's camp, the Hamadryad gracefully dismounted her puka, the crafter trailing behind her. "Greetings, Nuada. It is good to see you again," said the Hamadryad, extending her hands in friendship. She only recoiled a tiny bit when Nuada clasped her warmly, greeting a long-lost friend. "It is good to see you again. I was wondering when you would return," said Nuada. "When, not if? You did not doubt my return?" asked the Hamadryad with a smile. "No, I did not. How could you resist the opportunity to patch me up again?" Nuada returned, making her laugh. "And I see you have brought another to join us. Who are you, young sir?" As the Deverger drew closer, Nuada saw that the tools he carried were beautifully intricate objects, crafted with mastery. "Greetings, Nuada. My proper name is too long for even you to say, but I am known as Miach, son of Dian the Smith. Also, you call me young, but I feel very old and wise." The Deverger gave him a big wink like an old friend. "So, I've been told that you have been to the depths and have returned greatly changed, bearing powerful artifacts from that place." "Yes, Miach." Nuada eyed him carefully. "My arm is that of a spider. My sword is forged of some strange material, and I have some other treasures which I dare not touch." "Well, I could remove your arm quite easily, but I'll leave that task to another. I do want to study your sword carefully, as well as the other treasures," said Miach. He had an oddly precise way of speaking. "Give them to me, and show me where the nearest crafter guild is in this barren city, so I can be about my work. When I learn their true nature, we will talk again." Nuada ordered his treasures to be brought to Miach, and tried to hand his dark sword to the crafter. However, every time he reached out, he found he couldn't release it. "You must let go of the weapon if you wish me to study it, Nuada. It will be much more difficult if I have to hammer at it with your hand still hanging on," chuckled Miach. "But if you insist, I'll be happy to try. That might be fun for me." Grunting and straining against his own grip, Nuada found that he could not let go of the sword. He began sweating, and his arm itched. "Nuada, think about what you said to me when last we stood here together," said the Hamadryad gently. Wordlessly, Nuada cast his mind back to the way he had felt, turning away from the statue. As his anger left him, he found he could let go of the pommel, though reluctantly. "Oh, that was a bit of a sticky situation, wasn't it?" said Miach, laughing as he took the sword from Nuada. "Now comes the fun part, at least for me. Your part is a little less fun. You had better go with her and have that spider limb removed." He pointed at the Hamadryad. Nuada glanced at her, apprehensively, his arm twitching as it amplified his hesitation into fear. The healer clicked her teeth with disapproval. "Before you say anything, Nuada, remember how I feel about self-pity," she said, and patted him on his left shoulder. "Let's go find somewhere to remove that accursed arm of yours. Your tent will do." Just before he walked away, Miach grunted. "You have my sympathy, Nuada. What you are about to go through might make you wish you had not let go of the sword." The dawn was far too slow in coming, for the deserted city echoed with screams of pain and even the sounds of battle. No one dared go near the general's tent to find out what was happening. As the sun's first light finally made its way across the horizon, the healer emerged from the tent flap, covered in blood and ichor. In her hands, she carried the spidery phantasm of Nuada's arm, which still twitched in her grasp. Walking to the camp's central fire, she threw the limb into the angry flames and uttered a quick spell or prayer. The limb tried to escape, but she kicked it back in. The campfire flickered and roared as the soldiers nearby looked on in wonder. After a few minutes, the arm was finally reduced to ash. Sighing, the healer went back to the tent to continue her treatment of Nuada. It was months before Nuada was strong enough to walk on his own, but when he finally emerged from the tent, he had a new air of determination. His most loyal followers gathered to see. The Nuada who now stood before his people had aged, but without frailty or weakness. His eyes reflected a hard purpose, eschewing folly and overconfidence. That fine spring morning, as Nuada and the healer were eating their breakfast, Miach ran up to them excitedly. "Stop stuffing your faces. I have something to show you. Follow me." Without even waiting for a response, the crafter ran back to his tent. "He is a strange fellow," said Nuada, which earned him a familiar look from the healer. "Never mind," he sighed. Upon entering Miach's tent, Nuada found it surprisingly tidy. The tools of Miach's trade were neatly arranged on various shelves. In the middle of the tent, on a great stone table that had been raised right out of the earth, sat 3 items. The black obsidian sword, his father's old magic sword, and a gleaming silver arm. Nuada's eyes lit up. You are quite eloquent when you're excited, aren't you?" quipped Miach. "You really have the gift of words." "Miach," said the healer, trying not to laugh herself. "Oh, he's a big grown-up Tuaha. He can take any joke, can't he?" said Miach, grinning. "Can he handle my magnificent craftsmanship?" Nuada raised his eyebrows. "Yes, I can, Sir de Verger. My cup overflows with joy. You are truly a master craftsman, a de Verger without peer." Miach bowed, accepting the compliment as his due. "An amazing de Verger and a powerful crafter. I could see it the first time you came to our camp," continued Nuada, a sly grin spreading across his face. "Thank you," said Miach, nodding and folding his arms as he looked over the items. "My hard work, your prowess, shall be sung among all the peoples of the realms. I will spend the rest of my life telling all of your mighty work," Nuada interrupted, raising his hand. "Those in the one true city will also sing your praise. They will bring you laurels and give you hearty handshakes in return for what you have done here," continued Nuada. Said Miach. "No, even more. I will contact the emissaries and tell them of your prowess, of your greatness, of your..." continued Nuada, barely keeping laughter from taking over. The healer was holding her hands over her mouth, as if she might burst. "Well," said Miach, "they will want to take you into their world, to share the secrets of your magnificent craftsmanship, as you call it," said Nuada. "Enough," said Miach angrily. "Stop! For the love of the All-Father, stop!" At this, both the healer and Nuada began laughing uproariously. Miach turned bright red, and some of the stones in his arms lit up with a vivid glow. The Dvergr had to take a deep breath. "Well done," Miach finally burst out. "You stung me nicely." As he joined their laughter with his own, he added, "I had no idea you possessed such a sense of humor. Now, enough. Let me show you what she and I have been up to these past few months." Nuada sat in a very uncomfortable stone chair next to the table, but still looked smug with satisfaction at having bested the master crafter with a jest. "First, I reforged your sword from the pieces you had been lugging around," said Miach, as if that were a simple thing that anyone could do. "It is as it was, no worse, and maybe even a little bit better. I know that it will serve you well. Pick it up." Nuada rose unsteadily from the chair, for he still had not fully recovered, and picked up his sword. It felt wrong in his left hand, but he still remembered the feel of the handle. He nodded to Miach in acknowledgement of a job well done. "Next, I made you a new arm, of silver," continued the crafter. "Unlike your last arm, this one will not poison your soul. The metal has been treated with powerful spells by our wonderful healer, and she assures me that it will bond nicely with your body. Once this is done, it may feel a little different from your natural arm, but it will perform even better once you train it." "Train it," said Nuada. "Is it alive?" "Not truly, but you need to practice a while before you go out into the world and use it in combat," said Miach. "How long will that take?" Nuada frowned. 15 years, said Miach. 14.5 if I cut some corners. "What?" exclaimed Nuada in exasperation. "Got you," said Miach. "Never go against a Dvergr in a battle of wits." With exaggerated joy, he clenched his fist in triumph. "Oh, I see," sighed Nuada, hanging his head in mock shame. "Truly, how long?" "No more than 3 months, if you work diligently and do as I say," said Miach. "And that means resting when she or I tell you to rest." "I'll do as you ask," said Nuada. "Good. Now, here's what was truly challenging. This damned sword of yours," said Miach, casting aside all levity, "was a truly evil piece of work." "How so?" Nuada asked, staring at the smaller, stone-studded man. In a matter of moments, Miach's whole posture and aspect had changed from jovial to somber and critical. Miach's voice was cold and matter-of-fact. "Whoever made this sword, the merchant you spoke of, is truly a legendary crafter. Insane and evil. Yet his talent is undeniable. This sword was designed to drain your soul and the energy from your victims, and feed it somewhere else. Feed it where? Asked Nuada. Can you not guess? Said the healer, raising an eyebrow. The depths. It has to be, said Nuada, feeling a cold touch in his stomach. He had been so thoroughly fooled. Correct, said Miak. While you were using this sword, its foul tithe was passed into the depths. It is why you aged so swiftly, and why you became so weak. I didn't feel weak, Nuada began. No, that was part of its evil. You would have felt strong, up to the moment your entire soul was drained, and then your body would have died, an empty shell, with nothing inside, said Miak, his face twisting slightly into an expression of revulsion. A shudder of horror went through Nuada as he realized how close he had come to true death, and how deep was the crime committed against him by the merchant. He also wondered what had happened to the power that was passed into the depths. And what about now? Asked Nuada. What must I do with this weapon? Nothing, said Miak. I have rendered it harmless. I will study it further and try to unlock its secrets, but it will never harm anyone's soul again. That much I promise. Good, said Nuada. Now, let's get to work, said Miak, a very broad smile crossing his face. We have a lot to do, if you are going to be the savior of your people. I am no savior, said Nuada, but I'll do whatever is needed. I will erase the damage I have done. They began their work. For the next few months, Nuada trained daily with his new silver arm. At first, practice was very difficult, and he endured numerous mockery-laden sessions with Miak. However, the gentle touch and support of the healer, and the slow return of his once legendary dedication, Nuada made steady progress. When she was sure that neither Miak nor Nuada could see her, the Hamadryad smiled secretly, for she knew that deep within the depths, the merchant was no longer laughing. When he was truly convinced that his arm wasn't evil, nor would it just fall off, Nuada began pushing himself as he had in his younger days. His silver arm brought him new strength and grace, opening a whole new world of combat to him. When Nuada sparred with other warriors, they seemed to move and react more and more slowly. Nuada's actions flowed from one to another, as if it were all some part of a rhythmic dance. Each swing, block, and parry was effortless, and his silver arm moved as comfortably as his arm of flesh. After 3 full moons, Miak declared that Nuada was ready. As much as Nuada wanted to return to the depths, he knew he had other priorities. Over the next few years, Nuada, Miak, and the healer traveled the forested lands of the Tuatha De Danann together, searching for the scattered children of Danu. Though they formed an army, it was not one of conquest, but of restoration. Where they found their people oppressed, they restored balance. Where they found need and want, they shared what resources they had. Where they found prosperity, they took what they needed, not in treasure, but in knowledge. As they traveled, their army grew in number. Many Tuatha De Danann rallied to the banner and cheered for Nuada's great golden armor that Miak mysteriously found time to craft while on the march. Everywhere they went, they searched for word of Bress, but it was as if he had vanished. They sent riders to the one true city and to the other capitals of the world, but there was no sign of Bress or the 4 great treasures of their people. Though Nuada and his ragtag army gained some success, Nuada knew it was not enough. In order to rebuild after a century of damage, They needed to bring Brest to justice and find the lost treasures. On one particularly frosty winter night, Nuada sat by a roaring campfire, while Miach and the Hamadryad laughed over a joke. "You look troubled tonight," Nuada said Miach. "Ketshi got your tongue?" The unpleasant rumor of the way that the Ketshi dealt with betrayal instantly leapt to mind, just as Miach had intended. Yes, I'm unable to form a whole sentence this evening," said Nuada, dryly. "Still worrying about the elusive Bress?" asked Miach. "He can't hide from us forever." "We don't have forever," countered Nuada. "We shouldn't be lollygagging around here." "I don't know who Lolly is," said Miach, "but sometimes you could use a gag." "That's enough, you annoying, rock-brained," Nuada growled before he could stop himself. "Wait, that was the old me. I'm sorry, Miach. Truly I am. Bress's ability to hide from us is starting to frustrate me." "Starting? You've been stomping around for the last few months," said Miach. "Some of my relatives in the inner worlds can probably hear you." "Has it been that bad?" asked Nuada, looking to the healer for a sign of support. "You have been difficult these past 2 seasons. Your journey has been a challenging one so far, but this is still your journey, no matter how long it takes. Miach and I are here to help, but it is up to you to determine the outcome," said the healer, her voice neutral. "I know. Every attempt I make to find him fails. I've sent out enough riders to find a tiny Lukerpan in a great forest, but they come back empty-handed." Nuada began to grow red. Miach shook his head and sighed. "You're not listening to her, Nuada. She just said it was up to you." Nuada was about to snap back at him, but managed to swallow it this time. He let out a long breath and stared up at the sky instead of letting his anger take hold. The night was dark and moonless, for it was the time of Shadow's delight. There was no light but for the distant stars. It was like staring into an abyss. "Oh," Nuada snorted. "Curse me for a blind fool." The Hamadryad answered, as if absent-mindedly. She was engrossed in organizing some of her healer's herbs and tools. "That traitor is hiding in the only place he could hide, the depths." "Where you wanted to go originally," Miach chuckled dryly. Nuada jumped up, ran to his tent, and put on his golden armor. He raised the siren's call to his troops, and the ground began to tremble with the sound of marching feet. In seeking the entrance to the depths, they found that it had moved, and the monolith in the ravine was no longer useful. As the army traveled, Nuada chose 11 of his most loyal Tuatha to accompany him into the dark place he would go. It took a full year, but Nuada finally sent all the rest of the soldiers back to their homes and entered the land of the Arthurians. He and his chosen companions sought an entrance encased in a green hill by a lake. Walking through the lands of his sword brother reminded Nuada of Nimue, who had spoken so fondly of her homeland and its leader. Nuada hoped he would find no sign of her in the depths. He prayed that she was truly dead, for the other possibilities made him shudder. Thus ends the 5th part of the Silverhands Becoming story. Excuse me. Well, I hope you've enjoyed. It's always fun to read the lore that I work on to you folks. Let's see. Join us tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday for some streams in the afternoon. I know I'll be running a Gauntlet of Death. Gauntlet of Death. You're welcome, folks. Glad you enjoyed. Today we had coding with Andrew. Tomorrow, yes, weapon modeling with John, bows. So John's going to be taking some of the concept art that Michelle created on stream on Monday, and going to be making 3D models out of those, so you can see the whole process. And then I'll do Gauntlet of Death after that. All right. See you tomorrow, or see you later in any case. And thanks a lot. Bye-bye.